Nostalgia in wrestling rocks. Obviously you have the brilliance of watching the past come back into the limelight, but it also divides fans right down the middle. As excited as some people are about seeing a name of old return, there's plenty of others who throw everything in the air and proclaim it to be the end of days. How are we meant to move forward when we keep looking backwards? No matter which side you fall on, bless you. What's always a little eyebrow raising is when a legend pops back up to destroy someone who's in their pomp. That never really works. It's basically a big sign to say, hey, this guy isn't on the same level as me, and you never want that. Whoever's going to be hanging around for the long term should be the priority. Otherwise, what are fans going to think? Well, we know. There's happiness and there's sadness. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is 10 times the past screwed WWE's present. Number 10, Goldberg and Kevin Owens. Happening at Fastlane 2017, this clash was also for the Universal title, which added a lot of fuel to the fire. Now, there's no point pretending that I didn't love Goldberg's return in 2016, because I did. His fight with Kevin Owens was just necessary cannon fodder to set up numerous WrestleMania matches, but there was still the message thrown out there by WWE that Bill was the man after he did away with the champ in just 22 seconds. Those are the facts. Of course, Chris Jericho also figured in here when he too made an unexpected return after Owens had tried to kill him at the Festival of Friendship, and that was enough to distract KO and set him up for a spear jackhammer combo. That didn't help either, as it made Owens look a little dumb, but he did have a pretty good trump card too, namely that Goldberg had done the same thing to Brock Lesnar just weeks earlier. Unfortunately, Lesnar was allowed to get his revenge at that year's Mania, whereas Kevin never did. That wasn't the best either, and yes, at the start of 2017, fans were most definitely told that the past clearly had a leg up on the present, and you never want to have your leg up. Number 9, Hulk Hogan and Randy Orton. Well, this isn't a big surprise. All you've got to do is read any kind of literature about WCW or jump into Hulk Hogan's WWE pomp to learn that he didn't really like losing. On the one hand, it served him well in the sense he's still synonymous with pro wrestling, but in terms of giving back to the industry that made him, didn't happen all that much, which is also true when we talk about SummerSlam 2006. During his last match in WWE, somebody decided that when 53-year-old Hulk took on 26-year-old Randy Orton, who had already been identified by the promotion as a future star, should beat the Legend Killer, despite that being his nickname. What bigger legend is there than this? Not many, and yet still Mr. RKO was told he had to lose. Everyone tried to save some face as Orton did get the win before the referee overturned the decision as Hogan's foot was on the ropes, but from there it was like a schooling. The Hulkster ran wild on Randy before finishing him off with a leg drop, and that was that. In even odder circumstances, Hogan left the WWE a few weeks later, meaning this was absolutely ridiculous. Orton has done fine for himself ever since, but I'm pretty sure a clean win over Hulk Hogan would have helped no end. But we're not allowed that. More fool us. Number 8, WrestleMania 32 in general. A show that featured the past constantly smashing heads with the present. You can look at it a number of different ways, but even then, it's clear this event is where the Attitude Era went over. Think of that. It started when post the League of Nations New Day match, Shawn Michaels, Mick Foley and Steve Austin interrupted and kicked the crap out of all of them for no other reason than it was WrestleMania. Again, full transparency, I was in the crowd that night and went ballistic when Stone Cold's music hit, so once more I'm part of the problem. Also, the League of Nations sucked, so it was a dead project long before this. The real kick in the teeth was later on though. After taking 678 years to get to the ring and setting his name on fire, The Rock came head to head with the Wyatt family and then beat Eric Rowan in 6 seconds. Seemingly done just so the Great One could have the record of shortest Mania match in history, it was pointless. Just having The Rock there would have been enough because it's The Rock and he didn't need to destroy someone trying to make their way. It wasn't a million miles removed from Triple H and the Warrior years earlier, which I'm pretty sure most fans crapped all over. It doesn't really matter now, it was so long ago, but in terms of how to use legends, most agreed this wasn't the best way. Number 7, The Undertaker and CM Punk. Sometimes when you go through the books of history, it's not that big a surprise that CM Punk eventually took his ball and went home. He was never really WWE's guy no matter what he did. More evidence is right here when he clashed with the Dead Man in a Hell in a Cell in 2009. With the world title on the line, there was a feeling in the air that if Punk actually retained his belt against The Undertaker, no matter how he did it, he would cement his status as the next big thing. That would have annoyed Brock Lesnar, but I'm sure some cash would have calmed him down. In the end, didn't even matter. With rumours aplenty that Punk had ran foul of management after a discussion about what he should wear as the champ, Taker walked into the match, beat up Punk for around about 10 minutes, and then took his title. Throughout the whole thing, there was never even a glimmer of hope that the straight-edge warrior was going to win. It would take another 2 years before Punk got his big breakout moment, and really, it should have been here. There was no greater name in wrestling than Undertaker, and on top of that, this was his match, the Hell in a Cell. If we had gone all in with this young whippersnapper the fans had already warmed to, well, the future may have been very different indeed. Number 6, Hulk Hogan and Triple H. Hard this one, even if it does tie into things we've already chatted about. In 2002, however, Hulk Hogan was having a renaissance in WWE. Recently returned after having that match with The Rock at WrestleMania, fans were desperate to see him have one last nostalgic run. In that sense, you can't blame the company for what they decided to do, which was, yes, take the undisputed title off newly crowned champ Triple H and put it around the waist of the Hulkster. And let's not pretend otherwise. When this happened, the audience lost their minds and felt like they'd been part of history, and looking back, they kind of had. It was Hulk Hogan winning his last ever WWE belt. It's not like it was clean either, as it took Chairs, Chris Jericho and The Undertaker to take out Triple H, but it still happened. Weeks after Mania and a new championship being introduced, it was given to the Immortal One. Once again, it was the long-term goal that made it baffling. Hulk lost it weeks later to Taker after WWE realised, well, what else can we do? Hogan wasn't the athlete he once was and was limited in the ring. As soon as the novelty wore off, which it did, it just wasn't a good business decision, and Triple H had to pay the price. Just like the $1 Million Man. Number 5, Bob Backlund and Bret Hart. I still don't get this one. I'd love to know what was put in place to get this to happen and why one person didn't question what the logic was. Bob Backlund was back out of retirement playing a crazy heel, which was very entertaining for the record, and won the world title from Bret Hart. What? Defeating him in a throw-in-the-towel match, which I assume was done to try and give Bret a get-out-of-jail-free card, Backlund locked in the cross-face chicken wing before Helen Hart did indeed throw in a towel. It spelled the end for the Hitman's reign, and Bob was back on top of the heap, at least for a few days. In what made the situation even stranger, literally 3 days later at a house show, Diesel powerbombed Backlund through the floor to become the new WWE champion. That would have been fine if Kevin Nash had then lit the place up, but as we know, it didn't go down like that. It didn't go down like that at all. Why is the real question here, and you think of all people I would have an answer. I don't. It was just a legendary face from the past waltzing in, beating fan favourite Bret Hart, and then letting it go within 72 hours. Alright then. Number 4, Hulk Hogan and Yokozuna. Another one in the what the hell happened category. This decision also took another piece out of Bret Hart. But in case you don't know, after Yokozuna had retained his world title via vicarious means at WrestleMania 9, Hulk Hogan, who had only been back in the company for a hiccup, marched to the ring, demanded a shot of the gold, got it, and of course won the thing. This makes no sense for so many reasons, the biggest being why Yoko's manager Mr. Fuji would ever agree to this, seeing as his guy had just been through a war with the Hitman. I get arrogance, but still, this was a test of our believability. The match barely went 25 seconds with Hulk dropping the leg before many of us had even blinked. It was just all wrong. Hulkamania had run its course and fans were desperate for something new. Just as they were getting it, WWE reverted to type, and that was that. It was like going back in time. That's doubly true because not only was this yet another short reign, but Hulk left the company a few weeks after he dropped it back to Yokozuna. And where have we heard that before? That's right, on this list. Number 3, The Rock and CM Punk. There's a lot we can say about Punk's 434-day title reign, the first of which is that he still never felt like WWE's top guy. You can't be too mad about it as he was able to hold the title for a crazy long time, and that does mean something, but most of his defenses were moved away from the main event slot as John Cena kept that position. This is why when he came up against The Rock at the 2013 Royal Rumble, there was only ever going to be one victor. The idea, of course, was that WWE was building to Rock Cena 2 at WrestleMania, but needed a sweetener given they had clashed the year prior. That came in the form of the world title, but there was one problem. It was on CM Punk. The only option was a match at the Royal Rumble, which Rocky won quite easily, and he never looked to be in jeopardy as soon as the bell rung. Hindsight tells us we didn't really need to insert gold into this match, and that it would be another reason why Punk would leave the WWE a year later. Here we are 5 years removed, and there's not even a sniff of him returning, which I guess mean if he ever does, he'll now be considered the past. Number 2, Triple H vs CM Punk. Happening at Night of Champions in 2011, it was the day a lot of people believe killed the summer of Punk forever and held Punk back from taking his rightful place as a proper main eventer. The man staring at him across the ring that night was Triple H. It all started at SummerSlam that year when Alberto Del Rio cashed in on Punk, took away his world title after Kevin Nash of all people had returned and smashed the voice of the voiceless in the face. If anyone predicted that at the time, you should advertise your services, because it was so out of left field. Through various means, the Punk-Nash feud segued into a Punk-Triple H feud which culminated at the aforementioned pay-per-view. The no DQ match was riddled with run-ins as The Miz, R-Truth, Johnny Ace and Nash himself all got involved, but seeing Punk just get pedigreed and lose was really disheartening. It did absolutely nothing for the game, who was already a top star, but a win over someone of that stature would have launched Punk back into the rafters. Another reason why Punk eventually walked out, as he documented on his podcast with Colt Cabana, it's now just a point of contention into how WWE booked the man. But that's what the past does. It refuses to die. Number 1, the Royal Rumble 2014. This was not Dave Batista's fault. He had told WWE officials that he should return as a heel, but nobody listened. As such, within a few weeks of his comeback, Big Dave was on the fans' most wanted list, and all he really did was turn up. You could say he was there to help out his Hollywood career, but that's what a relationship is. Both parties get a little something out of the arrangement. The real issue was that at the time, Daniel Bryan was hitting heights nobody saw coming. The Yes movement was at the peak of its powers, and most of the audience just wanted to see him rise to the prominence they felt like he deserved. Because of this, everyone decided he must be a shoo-in for the Rumble, despite losing a match to Bray Wyatt earlier on in the show. So when Rey Mysterio entered at number 30, people were mad. It meant Bryan would not be here this evening, and all of a sudden Rey became public enemy number 1, until all of a sudden, that shifted back across to Batista. As soon as he had eliminated Roman Reigns to take the win, it was rejected by the audience as the past had once again undermined the present. Eventually this wrong was righted at WrestleMania 30, but that didn't stop the Rumble this year from being an absolute bust, and it was all because a member of the old guard emerged victorious. Hilariously, if WWE had swerved us and given Roman the nod, everybody would have loved it. Oh, how times change.